Novinak, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another lesson today. Today will just be a refresher, something that I should have started off with before I discussed on short stories, but these are just a quick lesson on the elements of a short story. Now, this, even though it's titled for year 12, you can also apply it to year 13 and also lower levels. And it basically gives you the titles that you've been learning in the different texts, and we will see that sometimes you might feel that it's the same and that it's very boring, but I tell you, all elements are very important to telling the short story. So, without further ado, let's begin. First of all, what is a short story? Now, short story is a work of short, narrative prose that is usually centered on one single event. So we do not have it as long as a novel, or we do not have this work as long as a drama. It is very short, and then you can usually see that it's based on one event, not many, but on one. It can be read in one sitting or in an hour, so you don't have to take long in reading a short story. So in one period in school, you can finish one short story, and if you have enough time, then you can discuss with the class on your thoughts of the short story or the next class. But usually, when you're reading the short story, it just takes an hour or in one sitting. It is limited in scope and has an introduction, body, and conclusion. So some short stories, they are very limited in scope, so it doesn't talk much about the history or political ideas or many things that are associated with things. It's very brief, it's very short. So it has an intro, a body, and conclusion. Moving on, we have the elements of a short story. The first element is the setting. Now, if you notice, I have separated setting and background, but when I've discussed some of our notes, usually they're together. But I would like to separate them so you can know what is the difference between the setting and the background. The setting is the place and time in which it happens. There's only one or two compared to a novel. So a setting of our short story is a physical place where it takes place. So if you have it in a classroom, that is the setting. If you have it in a village, that is your setting. So this goes back to how you learned in primary school, and the setting is usually wherever the story takes place. Then you have the background. Now the background, it includes the social, political, historical, and economic environment of the story. Now, even though they are different, they both work together to tell us the story, like mentioned here. So together, the background and the setting affect the lives of the characters and shape the events in the story. So the setting is the when and where also, but also you can have the background as the when. So for example, in Year 12's short story, The Preliminary Inspection, the where is in Lajonia Road in Mombasa, Honolulu, Fiji Islands. Then you have the when, which was during Diwali, the Diwali celebration, right? For year 13, you've got Harry. The when was during the time when there was a slum reappropriation, so they had to be taken into different places, whereas the where, it happened in London. So those are some differences between the setting and background, and they do work together to affect the lives of the characters and shape the events of the story. Okay, when you are discussing your short stories, then you'll see that they have to that both of these are equally important to show how the characters react in different situations, or how they are able to adapt to the different situation. Next, we have the characterization. Now, the characterization reveals how the characters in the story are described. Short stories have fewer characters compared to a novel. The focus is usually on one central character or protagonist. Now, the opposite of protagonist or the central character is the antagonist. So the antagonist is usually the person who brings out the good qualities of a protagonist. And I always think that whenever I watch superhero movies, and sometimes the hero is just as good as the villain. So if the villain is very evil and how the hero is able to defeat evil, then you can say that some people bring out the best in us when they are worse towards us, right? So writers use speech, action, appearance, and the observation of other characters to describe people. So I remember when I was back in uni and my lecturer had asked me, how do you, what is a character? So most of us, we gave very generic answers like characters in a play. Sometimes the writings, they can be characters. And he told us this anecdote, and I'll never forget, and I usually share it with my students. Someone's true character will be told if you were in a bus. For example, if you were in a bus and you're sitting in front and the bus suddenly catches fire and you're sitting in front beside the door so you can easily run out. But in the bus, there are pregnant women, there are little children, there are old people. Your true character is whether you will turn around, help the others, or you will save your life first. So that really did leave imprint in me. So whenever I talk about true characterization, how it is being explained in the short stories, usually by the person who is telling the story, how they are describing each other. All right, moving on, we've got plot. Now, the plot is the main sequence events that make up the story. So the plot can also be your summary, your synopsis of the story. A plot in short stories is usually centered around one experience or significant moment. A plot can be divided into exposition, conflict, complication, climax, and resolution. Now, the narrator and point of view. The narrator is the person telling the story. So these are all jargons that are linked with literature. So the narrator is the person telling the story. Now, the point of view. Now, sometimes stories are told by different people. Now, this is their perspective. You cannot say that that is that person truly who they are talking about. It's just another person's perspective on another. So point of view is from whose eyes the story is being told. Now short stories tend to be told through one character's point of view. Then we have style. Right? Now style, this refers to how the story is written, how it is organized, and how the author has used language. So they use the diction, the vocabulary, or the figures of speech. Now, figures of speech are what give the writing more color, more meaning. So examples of figures of speech, please don't get it mixed up with parts of speech. Now, figures of speech examples, simile, onomatopoeia, um, metaphor. There's so many others. So don't get them mixed up. So usually they call that, when I was in school, they used to say that's like gives the baking soda to our our cake, or it just gives this kind of a new experience where it makes it much more bigger than it is. Now, figures of speech to convey the mood and atmosphere and to describe the people, places, and events. Now, style includes the language, once again, the words used, the vocabulary, the use of imagery, the tone, all right, the figurative language, symbolism, and method of narration. Another also way of an style can be the direct quotes. So sometimes when there is a lot of conversation, it gives you a real-time experience of how the story is being told. Theme, please take note, theme is a common question that comes in external papers. So theme, they can mask the question by saying, what is the main idea of the short story? What is the lesson learned in the short story? What is the message in the short story? So they all mean the same thing. So after every short story that you are going to read in a year, there are always a theme or the main idea. Okay, what's the point of reading anything or hearing about anything if there is no theme? You have to learn something from what the story is telling us. Now, the relevance. Relevance is how the ideas or the themes relate to our lives and society. So, for instance, in preliminary inspection, you talk about relationships. There's trusting relationship between a child and a parent, between Savitri and her parent, and you have also a loving relationship between Savitri and Gopal. So, how does that relate to you? Are you to be more open? You are, everything is up to your own interpretation. For year 13, if you were talking about how is the relevance of Harry to your society, then you can say how superstition or supernatural activities is happening, or you can talk about how desperate people do desperate things in times of in times of need, right? How conditional love or conditioned love, it talks about all these things that are relevant to your society. So every short story that you are learning in a year, it is relatable to your society or your lives. Right, so thank you. That is a very brief discussion of our elements of a short story and what is a short story. So please, once again, like my previous video, if you enjoy or if you understood what I've been teaching you ever since you've been viewing my videos, you can always comment down below. Please like and subscribe. Share it with your other friends who are also in year 12 and 13. And I do hope that you enjoy my lessons. And please have a nice day and hope to see you in my next class. Thank you.